Hey everyone, welcome to the Explainer. Now look, we're actually going to skip the usual agenda today because we need to drop straight into what is essentially a geopolitical thriller. And the crazy part, it's playing out in slow motion right beneath our feet, or, well, beneath the waves. You know, while the whole world is looking up at the space race, there is this massive, hidden, high-stakes battle unfolding in total darkness, thousands of meters underwater. And it all comes down to one really big question. Who controls the resources that will power the next century? Because the answer to this isn't going to be found in a traditional mine or some bustling industrial city. The nations that can secure the materials needed for electric vehicles, massive battery grids, and all our future tech, they are essentially going to dictate the global economy for generations. And to find the absolute ultimate source of those materials, we have to travel to literally one of the most extreme environments on planet Earth. We're talking about plunging 11 kilometers down. That is roughly 36,000 feet down into the Mariana Trench. It is, for all intents and purposes, an alien world. Total shadow, no fish, no movement, just immense crushing pressure. But over recent deep-sea missions, it actually wasn't some wild biological discovery that caught the world's attention. No, it was something way more valuable, just scattered all over the abyssal plain.
All right, let's get right into it. Part 1, the deep sea prize. So, imagine these little rounded stones that take literally millions of years to form. Dissolved metals just slowly drift down through the water, crystallizing layer by layer around, say, a tiny fragment of bone or a shell. But the exact chemistry inside these things, that's what makes them a game changer. A typical specimen from what's called the Clarion-Clipperton zone contains 1.5% nickel, 1% copper, 2% cobalt, and a massive 25% manganese. Why should you care about those exact numbers? Well, nickel extends your battery life. Cobalt keeps your batteries from catching fire under extreme heat and stress. And manganese and copper, they are the absolute backbone of our modern power grids. These nodules are basically pre-packaged batteries just sitting there on the ocean floor.
And here is where it gets mind-blowing. The Clarion-Clipperton zone alone contains more of these critical battery metals than all known land-based reserves combined. Think about that for a second. Right now, our land-based supply chains are an absolute mess of geographic choke points and political vulnerabilities. We rely so heavily on the Democratic Republic of Congo for cobalt, or places like Indonesia and the Philippines for nickel. The ocean floor is offering this staggering, massive alternative. Moving on to part 2, building the capability. Okay, so recognizing that a prize is down there is one thing, right? Actually claiming it requires engineering that is just off the charts. Now, China understood this strategic value way earlier than almost anybody else. They realized that having a legal claim on a piece of paper means absolutely nothing if you don't have the tech to actually go down there and back it up. And their investment here didn't just happen overnight. It has been this incredibly methodical 2-decade progression. Back in 2001, China secured an exploration contract for a 30,000 square mile area. Fast forward to 2012, their submersible, the Jiaolong, hit 7,000 meters. By 2020, their next-generation vessel hit full ocean depth at 11 kilometers. And by 2025, they were running these highly complex, coordinated operations underneath the Arctic ice. To really grasp what kind of capability we're talking about, look at the Fenduziv, which literally translates to strive. It has a titanium alloy hull that is nearly 11 centimeters thick. That protects 3 crew members from pressure that is 1,000 times greater than what we feel at sea level. But you know what the real achievement is? It's not just that they went that deep once, it's the reliability. They completed 43 Arctic dives over 98 days. That proves China has moved way past just setting spectacular one-off records. They are now in the realm of routine, systematic operational dominance. Which brings us to part 3, the unfinished rulebook. So the subs are ready, the tech is there. But what about the law? Controlling access to the international ocean floor actually comes down to a single institution, the International Seabed Authority, or the ISA. They're a UN body headquartered in Jamaica. And under international law, nobody can extract minerals from the deep sea without their say-so. But here is the massive catch. The comprehensive mining code, the actual rules of the road for how to mine and how to protect the environment, has been stuck in endless negotiations for years. It's just completely unfinished. And in the meantime, countries have been quietly gathering all this crucial seafloor data. Then, out of nowhere, the whole game changes. In July 2021, the small Pacific island nation of Nauru triggered this obscure legal provision called the 2-year rule. Basically, this rule says that if the ISA fails to finalize its mining code within 2 years of a formal request, they have to consider mining applications anyway. Boom.
suddenly this slow-moving bureaucratic organization was handed a ticking countdown clock.
TikTok, right? That deadline actually expired in July 2023. And caught right between incomplete regulations on one side and massive commercial pressure on the other, the ISA deferred. Stepping right into that chaotic gap, state-owned China Minmetals submitted plans for a pilot mining trial scheduled for 2025. And to be clear, this isn't just picking up a few samples. This is a plan to physically collect these nodules at scale. They are totally pushing the legal envelope to see if operations can just move forward even without a finished regulatory framework.
But what's the cost? Let's look at part 4, the environmental footprint. So what actually happens down there when we fire up the machines? Well, the natural baseline of the deep sea is almost perfect stillness. It's an environment shaped over millions of years by just a slow, quiet rain of organic particles. But when a massive collector vehicle crawls across that plain to vacuum up the nodules, it triggers a violent disturbance. The turbidity, which is basically how cloudy the water gets, spikes to 10,000 times the natural background level. It just creates this incredibly dense, suffocating sediment plume.
The crucial thing we have to understand here is the scale of this long-term impact. For every single ton of nodules they manage to collect, they are violently kicking up 2 to 5 tons of sediment. Those plumes can literally hover there for over 14 hours, completely choking out delicate bottom-dwelling organisms. And honestly, the most sobering fact of all, scientists went back to look at tracks left by experimental mining all the way back in the 1970s. 44 years later, those tracks were still clearly visible. Deep ocean recovery isn't measured in years, it's measured in centuries. And by the way, nodules aren't the only resource down there, which means they aren't the only risk. The ocean floor also hides methane hydrates, which are often called fire ice. The absolutely critical number you need to remember here is 80. Why? Because methane is a greenhouse gas with more than 80 times the atmospheric warming power of carbon dioxide over a 20-year period. So trying to extract this fire ice, it carries extreme risks. It's found in places like the South China Sea, sitting right beneath these incredibly rare ecosystems. When they actually ran pilot tests to try and extract it, one trial leaked 1,500 cubic meters of methane. That is an impact rivaling the emissions of an entire coal plant. It even caused the seafloor to sink, or subside, by 20 centimeters. The environmental footprint of a catastrophic leak down there would just be devastating.
All right, let's zoom all the way out. Part 5, a geopolitical collision course. Looking at the macro level, what we are really watching is an unfolding superpower clash over the entire global economy, and we are seeing two completely contrasting strategies at play. On one side, China has methodically worked inside the ISA system using decades of participation and sustained rule shaping to position themselves for operational dominance. Now, on the flip side, the United States is reacting to the fact that China currently processes about 90% of the world's rare earth elements. Because the U.S. never actually ratified the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, it sits completely outside the ISA. So, in April 2025, a U.S. executive order was signed to unilaterally fast-track independent deep-sea mining permits in international waters, totally bypassing the ISA. You literally have two superpowers moving aggressively toward the exact same seabed, but playing by completely different rulebooks. And that leaves us right here, reflecting on this incredibly striking observation from our source material. The deep ocean is the last frontier of resource competition, and it is being claimed in slow motion. Think about it. The ecosystems down there, they have absolutely no voice. The rulebook meant to protect them is totally unfinished. Yet the technology to exploit this final frontier is already fully built, tested, and ready to go. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Is all of this just deep-sea science, or is it a quiet race to control the next century? The honest answer? It's absolutely both. Every scientific dive doubles as operational intelligence, and the choices being made right now, before these machines fully go to work, are going to have irreversible consequences for generations to come. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time as we break down the complexities of our world.